Thank you, Verlaine, and thank you to all of you who have come. And as she has already said, thank you to the more than 40 groups that have been motivated, quite coincidentally, to get together this week, which is, of course, on the eve of a very serious set of matters that are happening in our country about peace and war. Who would have known when we started planning this 6-7 months ago that we would be considering using military force again today and this week? So we have a lot on our minds and a lot of baggage of where we are and where we want to go to look ahead in the future for those paths to peace. I think I'm a little loud. Can we bring it down a little? Hopefully you can all hear me still. So today, we are dreaming about peace. We're yearning to achieve it. We are acting for peace and security. We are striving to achieve what we dream, yearn, and act for. And then we are looking at being at peace, being secure. That's some of the range of what we're talking about, from the most abstract to the most practical, following up on what Verlaine has said. And as I've already mentioned, the range of things is immediate and long-term. It's large and small. Syria, the children, the women, the men in Syria, chemical weapons used for the first time in decades in Syria, the U.S. proposal to use military force in Syria. I'm not ducking away from that because we just came from the Solano Stroll, and that's what everybody's talking about who come to our United Nations Association booth. And as many of your groups who are peace groups and many of you who are peacemakers know is on our mind. But also 12 years of war in Iraq for dubious reasons, Trevor Martin, guns, homicide, and conflicts right here in the East Bay, schools, neighborhoods, neighbors shunning, despising, not interacting with their neighbors, fights in the schoolyard. We're getting down a little bit more narrow, but they affect us. Breaking spirits and hearts of strangers or our family and friends, an element of peace. And let me step back even further then, and World War II, the most catastrophic warfare that involved the whole world and destruction and violence. And it was from that Second World War that there was the creation of the United Nations Charter, you all know, in 1945, to save the world from war, suffering, to rid the world of the scourge of war. That was a universal understanding in political, geopolitical, governmental terms of peace. And in 1981, those same member governments and the new ones who had joined the United Nations said, let's take it a step further. Obviously, we know our dreams and aspirations. Let's declare something else. Let's declare that there should be at least one International Day of Peace. Let us all stop in the world and take note of it to educate and promote about peace. They even called several years later for the International Day of Peace in September to become a day of ceasefire. So on a global level, as well as in our neighborhoods and in our hearts, we are really challenged. But it is that International Day of Peace that hopefully every country in the world will be celebrating this month, and this event is just one part at the beginning of that. But in addition to the political and the governmental levels, of course, the values of everybody here go back a long way, looking at the roots, long way before 1945. The common spiritual values, the common universal human values, where everybody was striving toward peace, toward turning swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks, to being peacemakers, to calling for love and understanding, to begin with the self and the heart, as well as in our groupings. And as Philaine said, we're going to cover ourselves and our heart and the groupings. I think it's important, even though I started with some of the dreadful things that happen in our world, big and small, that confront the prospects for peace, that there is an awful lot that is going on that is very positive about peace, because it is in response to those shortcomings and tragedies that there are groups like many of the ones you are involved in, and the ones I'm involved in, and the ones that our panelists and speakers and all of you are involved in today. There is this network. There's a growing feeling that more must be done, that we must get together, that we must share our ideas both today and outside of our meeting today. So it is in that context that we are really challenged, and I want to emphasize that we are the peacemakers. We are I'm sure all of you are here because you are yearning, dreaming, striving, acting for peace. If you can come away today having shared in your breakout groups especially, and in listening to our panelists, if you can share 2 ideas of the best things that will work or have worked, or hear 2 things that you think are the best from other people, and if we can take each one of us one better thing home with us to act on in the future, this will be a rousing success working toward the paths to peace. So let me end with Eleanor Roosevelt, who was actually an instigator, of some of the peace movements that started during the Second World War. She was instrumental in the forebears of our United Nations Association, even during the Second World War, calling for the United States to get involved in the global peace movement and to join the United Nations, as we did not join the League of Nations. And she said, it isn't enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in peace, we must work on it. And that's why we're here today. So we have 2 panels, as Philaine has said, and I wanted to introduce them as a cluster, as well as who the keynote speaker is. The group that is coming up here and will be in the panel and will lead also 3 of the breakout groups represent academic experience and expertise, practical experience, local, national, and several of them have worked internationally on peace. They are involved in negotiations, resolution of conflict. They are peacemakers. And so we're really very pleased to have this range of people. The first one who will be our keynote speaker is David Mcgaffey. You can see in your programs, Philaine has already referred you to the program, so I won't read everything that's in there. But David is former Peace Corps and has worked in the State Department for his career, working in a number of countries all over the world, in all continents, including some that were involved in conflict or have since been deep in conflict. He has written curriculum about peace and resolution of conflict. He's a teacher now to share some of his ideas, and we have the great pleasure of having him here today. And he will be followed by 3 people who will speak for a short period of time, commenting on him and bringing in other dimensions of this global and group dimension. And they are Rita Marin, who is, you can see in your program, who's an international law specialist and a teacher also, who's been extraordinarily active in human rights law and promoting and protecting individuals everywhere from the scourge of war and all of the violations of human rights. Stewart Levine is a writer, teacher, negotiator, resolution finder, mediator. He's bringing people together to work on peace, whether it's in business or in family affairs, or whether it's law and using the instruments of law. And he is also going to be speaking. And then finally, Leonard Joy, whom I've had the joy of knowing since we were both together in the United Nations. Leonard has been a long-time academic and researcher as an economist, but he's also gotten deeper and deeper into the values of what brings people together. He is involved in several spiritual and secular activities. He is also a teacher, and a consultant who has worked for many parts of the United Nations organizations, not the association. So we're very, very pleased to have this group, and we'll start with David Mcgaffey. Thank you. David?